Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to a brand new episode of a whole new ball game. How's everyone doing? I'm Alex Fuse. There's Vinnie Pasquantino. We are almost to the month of February, Vin.
We really are. It's amazing how it was just kind of like, hey, let's get rid of 2020. And now all of a sudden we're in the second month of 2021. It's insane. The time is moving, that's for sure. I mean, hey, that's just what we're coming up on a year. Coming up on a year of when COVID really started impacting all of our lives. You know, it was kind of around at this time last year. People knew what it was, but it hadn't really affected us yet. So we're getting closer to that. We're getting closer to big league spring training starting. So that's exciting for the baseball fans out there. It looks like that's going to start normal time. So, I mean, exciting times. Everybody's just getting ready for the season to start.
I can't wait. Baseball right around the corner. And, we're almost to the Super Bowl. And I love this Super Bowl, yes, for football, but more importantly, after the Super Bowl, it's baseball season, baby. So I can't wait. We got about 2 weeks from today when we're recording this. It's going to be less than 2 weeks from when this episode airs tomorrow morning. Less than 2 weeks away until officially baseball season. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's very exciting times. I didn't know we were within that 2-week window. So, hey, good for us. We're pushing through. Hopefully the minor leaguers have a season this year. That'd be cool. That'd be cool to play in a season. So yeah.
Baseball.
What'd you say?
It'll be cool to play baseball again.
It'll be nice to play baseball again. So that is definitely for sure. We're in an odd year, so that's exciting. We passed 2020, like I said, and we've moved on into 2021. So let's hope for a great year. Baseball season right around the corner.
But what an interview we have today. We can say awesome, we can say phenomenal, we can say terrific, but I'm going to say an A-plus Class A interview with the new play-by-play voice on the radio for the Chicago White Sox in Len Kasper.
Yeah, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I think this is one of the better interviews that we've done in our short little career here. I think this is one of the best ones that we've done, and I'm excited to share it with everybody. So Alex, are you ready? Are you ready to take us into the interview?
I'm excited. So this is the 20th interview that Vinnie and I have done. Let's get right into it with the new play-by-play voice of the Chicago White Sox, Len Kasper. We have a very special guest on the podcast today, Len Kasper. He's the new radio play-by-play voice of the Chicago White Sox. Len, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. How are you doing?
Hey, Alex, Vinnie. I'm a little mysterious today. I got a kind of dark background here, just trying to keep it fun. I'm good. Happy New Year, guys, and let's hope we can somewhat get back to normal here with a 162 game Major League season. Let's hope.
Absolutely. So we have something in common, you and I, Len. Just hearing when you were talking, when you accepted the job with the White Sox, one thing you kept saying is everyone remembers the time, if you're a baseball fan or a sports fan, when you're in the age of 12 to 13. And I was grounded in that window. Not a baseball fan up to this point in my life. I was like 13 years old, not a baseball guy at all. And I was grounded for 2 weeks. Couldn't watch any TV. I turned on the radio. And for what Ernie Harwell was for you, John Sterling growing up in upstate New York was to me. And I told John this, as you told Ernie this, if it wasn't for John, I would not be a baseball fan. You make the move now to radio. How excited are you just to get started with the White Sox to finally be able to broadcast games, the radio style, how you fell in love with the game and broadcasting?
Yeah, I'm really, really excited. I love television. There's a lot of teamwork involved. There's a lot of exposure. You probably are, heard and seen by, I don't know, 4 or 5 times as many fans as radio, but that kind of love for the medium was in my soul, embedded when I was a kid, and it never quite left me. And before I'm at an age where I want to retire, I wanted an opportunity to do baseball on the radio on an everyday situation. And turning 50 years old, hopefully I've got maybe 20, 25 good years left to do this. I've done television for about 20 years, and I thought this would be a good chance to do it and I didn't have to move. To be able to stay in the city of Chicago and still call that home was essential. I don't think I would have been interested in any other job in any other city. Just everything kind of aligned to create the perfect storm, if you will, and the opportunity arose, and I jumped at it.
Is there anything you're going to miss from TV that you're not going to be able to do on radio?
Oh, sure, Vinny. There's a lot about television. When you get into replay, Statcast, wind conditions. There are a lot of things that just visually you can really delve into on television. You can do those things on radio, but radio is much more about the what and trying to tell people what is actually happening, whereas television, in terms of the announcing, is much more about the how and the why. Mm-hmm. And so, I kind of look at TV as an analyst's medium, and the play-by-play medium is radio. Where the ball is, what the score is, those two things are paramount when you're calling a game on the radio.
How do you think your preparation, because I'm sure it's going to be the same, the basics, you're going to have to prepare. And this is not also, what I mean by this question is, yes, you're going to have to prepare more. It's a new team. Yes, the White Sox a little well just by covering the few games and calling the few games, but preparation style-wise for radio versus a TV broadcast, how is that different now for you?
Generally, it will be pretty much the same. I guess I would be better able to answer that question after I get started.
Yeah.
The few webcasts and radio broadcasts I've done in spring training, I have kind of prepared similarly to the way I would prepare for a television game. But now that I have a new partner, Darren Jackson, instead of JD, I have a DJ in the booth next to me. I think I'll tailor some things to what interests him, as opposed to what interested Jim DeShays, JD, a left-handed pitcher, Darren Jackson, an outfielder. So you come at the offense, pitching side of it a little bit differently with former pitchers and former position players. But I really am excited about that challenge, and I don't really think it'll take long for DJ and I to kind of learn what makes the other tick. He's a great guy, and I look forward to learning a lot about the game from him.
What was the general reaction as you moved from I don't want to get this wrong, the south side to the north side?
North side to the south side.
North side to the south side. What was the reaction? Was it positive? Did you get anything negative?
Oh, I definitely have hurt the feelings of some Cubs fans, and I take that as a positive that they're going to miss me. It's a passionate fan base here. There was a lot of shock and surprise that it happened because it did kind of come out of nowhere. But people who know me and friends of mine, after I kind of explained to them why I did what I did, certainly understand it. It's unique. It's a little out of the box. It's counterintuitive in some ways, but you guys have a long way to get to where I am age-wise. But I think once you get to a certain point in your life and your career, the big priorities start to change a little bit, and you start to think about not necessarily your legacy, but what are the things that I maybe have an opportunity to do that I haven't quite done yet. And this one checks a lot of those boxes.
You said in your press conference when you made the move that if there's something you want, you have to be active about it. Now that active doesn't change, right? Like, yeah, when you're 12 or 13 years old, you might say, I want to call baseball on the radio. But at that time, TV is not an option. Like your mindset was probably a focus on radio. So I guess that active is, how can you be so open to leave a great TV job calling Cubs baseball and just going to the radio on the White Sox? Like, how did you kind of develop that mindset? Maybe not just in the last few months, but over the span of your career.
Well, it was a pretty recent thing. The pandemic may have played into it just a bit. Definitely my age, 16 great years with the Cubs, a World Series ring from 2016. And so when I start to think about all the things that I've seen and experienced. Uh, I thought about, okay, I've done 20 years in the National League. I've never done the American League circuit. I've never been a number one radio voice. I've done television for 2 decades. I've never been the lead voice for a postseason game because there's no local television in October. My parents live near Detroit. The White Sox play 3 times in Detroit every summer. They're not getting any younger, so an opportunity to see them a little bit more often during the baseball season. So there are just a bunch of things on the list that I kind of thought that intrigues me a lot. And I'll still get to do a little bit of television, maybe 20, 25 games. And my friendship with Jason Benetti, who is the television play-by-play voice of the White Sox, he and I have become very close. He's a lot younger than I am, but he's an old soul in a good way. And we have an opportunity to do some fun things. So it's just kind of a mid-career turn. And when people say why, my answer is why not?
Lynn, I have to be honest with you. Alex sent me your press conference, and I didn't watch it. Good,
I wouldn't have either.
He sent it to me right when I got home today from training, and I just wasn't going to watch it at the time. So you may have already answered this, but I'm sorry if you have. But
no apologies necessary.
As this year went on, did you have any idea that, like if you look back on 2020, would you have ever thought that you would be working for the White Sox in 2021?
No, not at all. But, if I sat there on March 9th and said they're going to stop everything 4 days from now and we're not going to have a season until July, no minor league baseball and all the weird things that happen, I wouldn't have believed that either. So I guess in a weird way, it keeps with the theme of 2020. And, there are a lot of people who've made changes in their life. And I do wonder if the reflective nature of the isolation that has been forced on most of us has maybe made some people not necessarily rethink their life, but understand that it's very fleeting. And if you want to make something happen, and if you're in a position to make something happen, and let me be very clear, the Cubs were great partners with me along the way. And when I asked them about the opportunity, guys, I had a year left on my contract. They very easily could have said no. But because of the equity I had built up with the Cubs, with Marquee Sports Network, and the relationships that I had built on a personal level, they all said, if this is something ultimately you want to do, we're not going to stand in your way, but we're going to do everything we can to keep you. And if I had burned one bridge, I would not have made this move. And thankfully, I can hold my head high, and I won't speak for anybody else, but all the people I worked for and with are still friends of mine to this day. And I would not have made this move had it created bad feelings.
So, you were talking about in March, I'm assuming you're in Arizona.
Yes.
Spring training, and then everything gets shut down. Could you kind of describe how your year went? Like, if I had to guess, you are in Arizona, then eventually you fly home and you just kind of wait. And then, so could you describe kind of what you went through this year?
So it was the Monday of that week, and I was, because of the first year of the new TV network, we were doing every spring training game. So I was waist deep in preparing for a different team every single day. And I had kind of kept one eye, but not much, on the pandemic and everything that was happening. And I couldn't spend a lot of time thinking about it because I had so much else to do. And as a player, right, you can understand that you just kind of block out the world. So I remember the Monday of that week, we had a game in Scottsdale against the Giants. And I chatted with Larry Baer, the president and CEO of the Giants. And if you guys recall, Northern California was not in a good place at that time, and they had started to cancel things there. And I don't want to give away a private conversation. I don't think Larry would mind. He said, "Where are you guys opening?" And I said, "We're supposed to open in Milwaukee." And he said, "I'm not sure that's going to happen." And it really took me back. I hadn't contemplated that it might affect our season. So 2 days later, we had a night game against the Padres, and word started to circulate that things might get shut down. And that was the night I think the NBA stopped, and then all hell broke loose. Went to the ballpark the next morning. They actually canceled the game due to a weather forecast that had a little bit of rain in it. Essentially, I think it was everybody knew that we were going to be shut down. So we get the news that it's a 2-week delay. I interviewed Theo Epstein for a marquee half-hour special report. And when we finished the interview off the air, I kind of shrugged and I said, I don't know what to do. And Theo goes, I would fly home as fast as you can. I don't anticipate we would start until at least mid-June. That's how far ahead of it Theo was. I give him a lot of credit. He really had been on top of things. He was already social distancing in mid-March. So, guys, I made a phone call, I think, that night to United, and I got on a flight the next day, and I got out of Arizona because I didn't want to get caught trying to leave spring training with hundreds, if not thousands, of other people. And I've basically been home since. And it was really weird to be at home and not be at the ballpark for April, May, and June. And the 60-game schedule just went by in an absolute blur. And I would say from the first pitch to the final pitch, it felt pretty normal, but everything around it was totally weird. Just not being able to be around a lot of people and talk baseball, and to only be able to do Zoom or text with players and managers and coaches. It was hard. It was difficult. And we may start similarly this year, but I cannot wait until we're allowed to be on the field and behind the batting cage 3 hours before the first pitch.
Yeah, that was one of the weirdest times of my life, at least, is that little week, that week in March when nobody really knew what was going on. Because I remember one day everything was kind of going on in the world and nobody really knew, and we got called in for a meeting, and it ended up just being a baseball meeting, and we all kind of thought, like, we're going to figure something out, like something's going to give maybe. And then when we went home, it was kind of like, hey guys, you'll be gone for a month maybe. and then we'll be back at it. And like, I left a whole bunch of my stuff out in Arizona because nobody knew. It's just so fascinating kind of what everybody kind of had to go through that first few weeks, especially.
Yeah. And it had been, really, when you think about it, we were, 10 days from opening day. So
big leaguers were about to leave. I remember that because we were about to start our first inter squads.
Yeah. So, having the short spring training later was different. And just, if it had happened, guys, 3 or 4 days into spring training, I think it would have felt a little different. But, a lot of the Cubs players, I remember, stayed in Arizona for another week or two to still try to work out at the team facility. But it did not take long for the powers that be to just tell everybody, you know what, go home, get in a workout schedule, and we'll tell you when we're going to start again. And we did a Cubs podcast that we started in late May, and our first guest was John Lester. And even like at the beginning of June, he said, I'm not going to start throwing until I have an absolute first date that we know here's opening day, because he said the last thing I want to do is start, I'm 36 years old. I don't want to get warmed up again and start getting loose for a season and then have them push it back yet another month. So it was tricky, I think, for the pitchers in particular.
Not only did you spend a lot of time not traveling, obviously, but you actually called a no-hitter from your home. So I think Boog, when we had him on the podcast, and we'll get into your guys' friendship, he goes, sometimes the people wherever you're working don't even realize just how much, when you're on TV, like you're almost handcuffed by what is on a monitor. How worried were you when it was getting to the 7th and 8th inning of that game, anticipating what eventually happened?
It was Alec Mills. It was in September at Miller Park in Milwaukee. I wasn't at my home. We actually did the road games from the back of the Wrigley Field booth. So I was at Wrigley, but just calling the game, as you said, off a big monitor. And the way we did it, we had a program monitor. So that's what you would see if you were watching the game on television at home. And a thing they call the all nine feed, which is kind of the broadcast booth view. It has the entire field from behind home plate. So you can see all the defenders on the field. The problem with that feed is that sometimes you couldn't quite tell with a shift who the second baseman and who the shortstop was. And there would be like a half a second delay. And I hated that it was behind kind of the program feed. So I didn't use that a whole lot. I knew I don't know why, and I'm terrible at predicting no hitters, but I remember pretty early I turned to Jim DeShays and I said, I think he's going to do it. The Cubs had like a 9 or 10-0 lead. And so Craig Counsell just emptied his bench. And so you had almost kind of a spring training vibe to it. And I was worried about the shift. My concern would be the final out, ground ball up the middle. David Bodie makes it's Horner. Nope, it's Baez. I didn't want to make that mistake. So I said to myself, if you have to be generic, just don't commit too soon. Well, of course, it was a ground ball up the middle. It was a slow chopper. But I immediately knew it was Javi Baez because he pumped his fist when he fielded the ball. He was already celebrating, which is something that only he can do before he made the play. And so I got it right. But yes, I was very nervous to make that call because I didn't want to get the identification of the players on defense wrong.
Now, how weird is calling a game in an empty Wrigley field?
Really weird. We got used to it as I think they tweaked the PA crowd noise. I think that did help, but it was very strange. And while they kind of calibrated and they got the reaction stuff correct, and Vinnie, I think you can relate to this, what we missed was the anticipation. So I want to say we played the White Sox actually a first exhibition game, and Tim Anderson hit a bullet down the right field line that hit the side wall. It ended up foul, but there was no sense of, like you can tell when something big is going to happen. And those are little cues, I think, not only for broadcasters that something may be a big thing, but I think it's a cue for players too. And that was something that everybody had to get used to. And as I said, I'm not so sure I got used to it, and I don't want to get used to it. And I really want fans back in the ballpark. I don't know if you guys watched much of the NFL playoffs, but just the 5,000 or 6,000 fans at Lambeau Field and at Arrowhead Stadium, that made a big difference. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing, isn't it, that even 20% capacity just makes it feel like it's a normal event.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really does. I know I went out to Kansas City after the season ended, and we had a camp out there, and they would play the crowd noise, and it was kind of crazy how just adding a little bit of crowd noise did make the atmosphere turn up a little bit. Then when it went off, it was almost nothing. So I can't imagine playing. You're playing in these games that mean so much, and there's just nothing happening. And then you get to the World Series, and there's however many fans that were in there. That was probably a little shell shocking for the players a little bit going through the year. What was kind of the biggest thing you learned throughout this past year, whether it was about yourself or just about anything?
Well, I would like to think my adaptability, the idea that I had never anticipated, guys, that I would have to call a big league baseball game in Kansas City, using that as an example, from Chicago. And we pulled it off. Again, it wasn't ideal, but you try to tackle every challenge positively. And these are the cards you're dealt. I think, again, everybody in uniform had a very similar approach. Theo Epstein said right before the season started, I don't want to talk every day about how different everything is, because that kind of gives you a built-in excuse. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really talk that much on the air during the games about, well, we're not there, so, pardon us if we, screw everything up. I made mistakes, but I tried to just shake it off and learn from it. You have a sixth sense and kind of your peripheral vision when you're in the ballpark, where you're talking to your partner and you're looking over here, but you can kind of see things on the field in front of you. When you're doing a remote broadcast, you're not as in tune with a monitor. And so what could happen is if the play ended and you assume that the guy at first went to third on a single, and then you started to read a promo, and then the next guy hits the first pitch into right, you're thinking, well, he's just going to score from third. And then you realize, oh, he was actually at second and he wasn't able to score. That happened a handful of times. And it was like, mental note, make sure you're always resetting where the runners are between plays, because it's just something that becomes rote and assumed when you're in the ballpark that you can see.
Do you have producers in your ear during TV broadcasts?
Yes.
What about radio?
We do have an engineer who generally will tell us cues in terms of station ID or what have you, but it's a lot less than on television.
Are you looking forward to that part?
I've gotten used to it. I've had people in the booth and I'll tell them to put on the third headset just to listen to how we listen to a game. Mm-hmm. And after a while, when a big inning ends and you hear 7, 6, 5 in your left ear, and you can still hear yourself in your right ear, and you just keep talking. When people first hear that, it's very jarring because you hear another voice it's like, no, keep talking. They're not on the air. They're talking to you. So you just get used to it. I think experience tells you that, it gets less crazy as time goes on.
Well, have you ever been talking and in your ear you hear, "Hey, Lynn, shut up, stop." Has that ever happened to you?
Oh yeah, all the time, all the time. Yeah. I think it's my wife actually when she is producing the game. Enough. We've heard you enough tonight.
Yeah. When so how many years have you been broadcasting?
Well, if I want to be technical about it, my first job was 1988. I was 17. It was a part-time job in a small radio station in Michigan, and I've kind of kept my hand in it since, but really as a full-time broadcaster since 1994. So, 27 years, something like that.
So what kind of changes have you seen in that time? I mean, obviously, there's the obvious ones, I know, but is there any intricacies that, people might not just see that you can, you see because you've been doing it for so long?
Yeah, the internet is obviously number one. Just research-wise, everything being at your fingertips. I didn't have a cell phone until, probably 95, 96. I don't think I had an email probably in 97, 98, but I don't think I used it very much. And I remember the internet we had at the radio station, it connected us to the San Jose Mercury News, the New York Times, and maybe one other newspaper. And that was it. And it was like getting cable for the first time. I remember in 1981 or 82, it was just totally bizarre, unique, foreign thing that I didn't quite understand. But I have a hard time understanding or going back and trying to remember what my job was like prior to having the internet. I don't think I would feel very comfortable doing a broadcast without my laptop.
Has there ever been a broadcast where you were just kind of not uncomfortable, but I'm thinking of the Bartman incident? Like, has there ever, what was it like going through moments like that where you just kind of, there's things happening and you don't really know what's going on?
Sure. And actually I was with the Marlins when that occurred. And so for 16 years, I've been asked by Cubs fans and others, what was it like being on the other side watching that whole thing develop? Absolutely. I remember being in the Marlins radio booth with John Shambi and Dave Van Horn and seeing the monitor and wondering why they keep showing this guy. They kept going back to him in the stands. Thankfully, he had a baseball cap and glasses and the backpack. And, I don't know if I would recognize him today if I ran into him on the street, but it got pretty ugly there for a couple of days. And it was instructive for me to experience that disappointment, because I do think Cubs fans are unique in that regard. And prior to 2016, it was very instructive to see just how important Cubs baseball was and is to people on an everyday basis. And, that was kind of the night or the play, Vinny, that you were really not expected or anybody wanted you to talk much about. I think it's easier for people to discuss that night and that inning and that play now after the Cubs won it in 2016.
You mentioned John Buchshambi, who you two have been friends since the Marlins. Now he's replaced you on the other side of Chicago. How excited are you to be reunited? Because I believe this is the first time you're working in the same area, not for the same team, but same area since the Marlins, right?
Yeah. It's been about 16 years since we were in the same city. I'm totally excited. I wish I could tell you I had something to do with the orchestration of him taking over for me. I had nothing to do with it. It's not surprising to me that they quickly viewed him as the top candidate. We talked a lot about my situation before I left, and he advised me and kind of had me think a lot about the things that were important to me. And then we reversed roles a little bit when he was contemplating whether this would be the opportunity for him. So we've had a lot of fun kind of talking about the big picture and reminiscing a little bit. And that part is fun. And back to Vinny, when you're talking about being uncomfortable, I wanted to, I had thought of another situation, but you asked me about the Bartman thing. But in terms of being uncomfortable as a broadcaster, a very instructive night for me was in 2003, maybe. We were in New York playing the Mets. I was with the Marlins. I got on the team bus at about 3:45. My work bag was underneath the bus, so I couldn't fill out my lineups or anything. And we got stuck in traffic in New York going to Shea Stadium. We ended up getting to the ballpark, and we had probably 8 or 9 players at 6:30 for a 7 o'clock game. And so the broadcast that night, Tommy Hutton and I on TV and John Shambi and Dave Van Horn on radio, I mean, it's literally show up, announce the game. No pregame preparation or anything. And that was instructive for me because I got through it. I was more loose. I had more fun. I couldn't rely on all the information I had gathered. And I was paralyzed with fear walking into that ballpark that the broadcast would be a travesty. And it turned out that it was okay. And it was kind of shock therapy in a way, or exposure therapy. Take the scariest thing you could ever think of and actually do it. And I got through it. So, you often hear about relief pitchers who have to make emergency starts, and they're really good, and they end up saying, you know what, I didn't lose sleep last night thinking about it. They told me I was going to pitch, and I pitched, and I was fine. Maybe there's a little bit of that in what happened that night.
When it comes to your research, how extensive do you get? Because I picture you sitting there in front of your monitors with just papers in front of you all over the place with different, like how many, there's probably so many stats that you've had that you didn't read on air or something. Like how do you know what to, how do you know what to say?
Well, I do have extensive notes. I have player profiles. I have team profiles and the like. Your buddy PJ Higgins, so I can tell you right now what I have on my computer as we sit here and talk. So PJ was a 12th round pick out of Old Dominion in 2015. He's from Connecticut. He started catching in 2016 in low A ball. He hit half of his career home runs in 2019. He had 20 going into 2020, but 10 of those came in 2019.
Hey, I can't wait till this interview ends now so I can run over there and tell them. That is exhilarating. That just fired me up a little bit. You bringing me out those stats like that.
Yeah. So you just, you have a few notes and you build on those as time goes on. And when PJ's in the big leagues, we'll add several sentences to that. And that's how it works.
Did you know that the Cubs are the Old Dominion varsity team, basically? We have PJ Higgins, Connor Myers, Bryce Wyndham, Jared Young, Matt Birch, and Jacob Wetzel. 6 guys from Old Dominion that are in the organization now.
That's crazy.
But Alex, I think you had a question, so I'll let you talk.
No, I'm just gonna say like if you could describe like ODU baseball players, it's like Syracuse with broadcasters, but
Oh yeah, I get that.
just spread all across, I guess. Like everyone I talked to, Jason Benetti, Syracuse
Yep.
alum, you're a Marquette alum, but still, those Syracuse guys are all over the place.
And I type in Sienna, and
Yeah.
I don't have it. I don't have anybody now. Now I have players I need to update files, but in my player profile page,
Mhm.
I don't have any Sienna guys. What's up with that?
There has been a few players that
Yeah, no, I know,
signed,
I
but
know.
yeah,
So for those player
not yet.
profiles, is that something that like you have to do yourself, or are you able to pull from somewhere and like load it in?
Yeah, I do it myself, but I use a lot of different sources to put stuff in. And so, for instance, let's say there's an article today about Liam Hendricks, who's the White Sox new closer, and about his transition from starting to relieving and some of the things he did. I'll read those articles and I'll just take a few notes. And in a lot of cases, those articles simply spur questions that I might have for him. And so hopefully I see him at spring training and I'll maybe talk to him about his pitch repertoire and about the idea of kind of letting it all hang, letting it loose on every pitch, as opposed to as a starter trying to save some in the tank for later. I know he's talked about that, and so it's just nice to get it directly from the player as opposed to just reading an article about it. But I can't talk to every player every day, but I often, when I do, I ask very specific questions, and sometimes they're quirky, and I try to ask questions that make sense to me, and the player finds interesting. I once asked Nolan Arenado about his glove, and he went on this long rant about his gamer, and guys love their bats, they love their gloves, and he talked about that glove like it was his child, and I got so much good information. And when I asked him about it, I could tell it's not a question he's been asked a lot. And I think players like Arenado get asked the same questions over and over. So if you can find something that's a little off the beaten path, but might get a guy going, I'm all in.
Is your plan as of now to go to spring training this year?
That's my hope. I have not been told one thing or another, but I would like to think that we would be in Arizona for spring training in about a month and a half. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So you're in Chicago. You're moving to the different team, but it's when you look at kind of the mecca of sports, you're looking at, and when I mean mecca, I just mean really big markets, like crazed fan base. You're looking at New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, a few others. Sorry to those cities that I didn't name, but what's it kind of like being in such a crazed fan environment like that?
That's amazing that people here, their sports heroes are, it's a little bit like Hollywood with actors and directors and producers. The celebrities here end up being truly the sports personalities, and broadcasters end up kind of falling into that category as well. It's a very, very, very loyal, passionate fan base. It's definitely a Bears town, but it's a huge baseball town, and I love that it's a two-team town. And you would think that with one team in the AL and one in the NL, having been around for well over 100 years in both cases, that a lot of fans would root for both teams, but that is not the case. Most people who love the White Sox hate the Cubs. Most people who love the Cubs hate the White Sox. It's just kind of the way it is, and that's you live with it.
Now you said it's a Bears town. If you take, because I think it's both. I think I'm biased. I'm a baseball guy, but I think Chicago is a very good, great baseball town. Take Chicago out of mix, Len. What would you say maybe the top 2 or 3 baseball towns in America are?
Oof. Wow. St. Louis, huge. Yeah. Even when the Blues are really good or when they had the Rams, it's a Cardinal town 100% of the time. I think an underrated baseball town is Pittsburgh. They've had just a couple of really good seasons here over the last really 30 years, but I think they're craving for a a really good team. Those are places I've been to a lot over the last 16 years in the NL Central. Yeah, Cincinnati's a great baseball town. Non-division places where I really like to go. I mean, I like going everywhere, but it's an interesting one, and the ballpark is never full, but the fans who show up are incredibly rabid. Is Oakland. The fans in the outfield, they idolize all their players, and they've had some good teams here of late. And as weird as the Coliseum is, I always like going there because the fans are nuts.
Mm-hmm. Back when they're winning, it's incredible. It is, and over the past few years, they have been. So I mean, those fans, I'll still remember when Josh Reddick was playing right field, and all those fans were going absolutely nuts for him.
Yep.
Well, when we do a segment at the end, it's called Balls and Strikes, and
Yep.
we're each Alex will start. If you like the question, call it a strike, answer said question. If you don't like the question, call it a ball. You can either answer it or move on if you want. Make us feel bad about asking a bad question. And whoever pitches a strikeout wins the game. So, Alex, go ahead.
All right.
Now, I apologize to Vinnie well in advance. I guess I use a phone a friend for some of these. So
he's putting his glasses on. He's putting his glasses on to make sure he reads these right.
So when John Boog Shambi got the job with the Marlins, you messaged him via AOL. By the way, Boog still uses an AOL email.
Yep.
What was your AIM handle?
Oh, wow. I'm going to say strike, and I'm going to say Len J. Kasper. Is that right?
I don't know.
Oh,
He didn't tell me that.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Oh, I thought you were asking that question because it was a funny username or something.
No, that's it. Well, he calls me Len J.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no. He just said ask him what his AML handle is.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Len J. Kasper was my AOL handle. Yep.
Yeah. And I said to Boo, I go, but the real question was, did he message you on AIM after you got the Cubs job? Because that would have been, full circle.
Yeah, I don't think I was on AOL at that point. All right, so is Vinny next or what?
No,
Alex is up
now. You keep going. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like one-on-one basketball. Make it, take it.
Okay, gotcha.
What is one piece of sports memorabilia you don't own that you've always wanted to own?
I have to say it's a strike again. That's a great question. I am not a memorabilia person, but I would love to have an authentic wool jersey of one of the all-time greats. And it doesn't matter who, maybe Al Kaline, who I was a Tiger fan growing up, Hank Aaron, something like that. Just the concept of wearing wool in the middle of the summer just makes my head want to explode. But that's what the game knew for about the first 90 years, and then only in the 70s did polyester take over. But I would like to have kind of an old school Major League wool uniform.
So
all right, so 0-2, you got the strikeout pitch ready?
This is gonna be it right here. But I can't take credit for this question. Too. But I have to ask it. Why don't you have a signature home run call?
Oh, I'm going to go ball. I'm going ball. Do I still have to answer it?
You don't have, if you don't want to.
No, I will. I'm going to say ball just because I want Vinny to ask me a question. But every home run is different, and I didn't want home runs to feel normal. I want them all to have their own little place in the world. And so if something natural hit me, great, but I never wanted to create something that I would say every time.
A follow-up to that. Now, I'm a John Sterling guy, because he's why I'm doing this. What's your take? Now, obviously, I don't know your opinion of John Sterling, but what's your take on the nicknames? Do you like them? Do you not?
All I care about, and John is a friend of mine, I love him. All I care about, guys, is that announcers are who they are. And if you are yourself, go for it. Matt Vasgersian's a friend of mine. He used to do movie references with his home run calls. That's who Matt is. John has a theater background. He has a flair for the dramatic. His home run calls are very much a part of his personality. So I love that about him.
And it makes sense with Susan and her background too. And I know Susan and them talk a lot about, how they come up with the names and stuff. And a lot of times, sometimes they're over my head. But then I do my research on why he's saying, like for Solar Day, he had, Solar, he went into this whole thing. And it's like, that's
Right.
pretty cool.
Can I, we're going to do something different here. I'm going to put Vinnie on the spot.
Ooh,
And you can say strike or ball if you want. I know you're put together. You're a slugging on base first baseman. But looking here, and I could be wrong, but I see under the SB category, including your college and your minor league days, you are a career 0 for 1 in the stolen base department. Are you ever going to steal a base?
Well, Lynn, at Instructs this year, I would just like to announce to the world, I did steal a base.
All right.
Stolen base. I have a video of it. I think I put it. Yeah, I did put it on my Twitter.
Okay.
And I think that's it for me, though. I think I got the one for one in professional baseball, even though Instructs don't count for statistics. So I guess I'll say I need to get one in a real game at some point, just so that on the back of the baseball card, they don't eliminate the SB category on there.
Yeah, on your baseball reference page, you got to have a 1. So did you steal the base because you hadn't done it before? Did you have a big lead? What were the circumstances?
Essentially, because the Royals are known for their speed, and I have none. So that's kind of something we're working on, is just developing a little, not to be a stolen base threat, but just A-Rod in his later years, he'd take one every once in a while.
That's right.
So that's kind of the goal. And I had a good read on the pitcher. I actually knew the guy. He's from where I'm from, which makes it a little bit better, I think. And I just looked at my first base coach. I said, hey, I'm doing it. I'm going for it. And I just took off, and man, I should have just taken the base from second base. That was originally going to be the plan, is just take it, walk off the field, and go home, because that's about as good as I'm going to get on a night.
Yeah, so just, this is how I think this is instructive, because you were talking about, preparation. So if we had a Cubs or now a White Sox Royals spring training game and you came to the plate, and I pull up your baseball reference page and I look at, from the time you were 19, I guess, in college to 2019, a little more home run power. So one question that may come up on a broadcast. Now, I can ask you this now, but if I couldn't ask you then, I would say, well, 2 things are possible, and both may be true. Maybe you added some muscle as you got to be 20 and 21. And I would also wonder about launch angle and whether you maybe possibly changed your approach a little bit. Am I correct in either case?
The first case, yes.
Okay.
I got hurt my sophomore year. The coach told me, you have 8 months of rest, pretty much. I want you to gain 30 pounds.
Okay.
Check. I left at 205. I came back at 240. And that helped. That took away some of the agility there and some of the speed.
Sure.
And then in terms of launch angle, I really didn't change much. I just think my approach got better and I got stronger. And my goal my entire life was I want to hit line drives and I want to spin them. And I'm not necessarily I do worry about it now a little bit. I know where my angles I want to have them, but as you see in there, I didn't get real power until 2019. And I think it was just more of, instead of hitting them this way, I was hitting them this way.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's funny. I look at your profile, 6'4", 245. You're listed on this page. You don't want to be hitting ground balls. Your job's to find gaps and hit the ball over the fence. Yeah.
And when I do hit a ground ball, I don't beat it out. So
exactly right. You're probably hitting it to the second baseman in shallow right.
Yep, or the shortstop right up the middle. That's the one that burns me the most. It's not the ground ball to right field. It's the one up the middle that is a hit 100% of the time, and you can't even see him. That's the worst part, is you hit it up the middle. The pitcher moves. Oh, the shortstop's standing right there.
Yeah, that's great. See, you guys, I've been able to do some homework here, so I've got the Vinnie profile when we see him.
Yeah, that's right.
Killing two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
I know.
So I had a question.
Yeah,
And
go ahead.
I forgot the question. I
Oh,
can't remember if it was any good or not. So I'll ask the question for the show. It'll be a
Yes.
ball, but that's fine. This is for the show and strictly for the show. Do you prefer drinking out of plastic or glass cups?
Oh, that's a strike. Glass. Yeah, not a plastic. Yeah, not in on plastic.
Things just taste better out of glass, I think.
I'm with you. I'm
So
with you on that.
when you were younger and you decided you wanted to get into the broadcasting business, what would you have defined as success then? And
Oof.
clearly you're successful, but would you have defined what you're doing now as a success?
Yes. When I was younger, it was just do a big league game, and I think the same will be for you. Once you get there and play your first big league game, you will get very greedy, and you will say, "I never want to leave."
Mm-hmm.
That there's no question. I remember doing my first major league game, Brewers Pirates, April of 1999, and I left the ballpark saying, "I found my love, and I want to do it more." And thank goodness I've been able to do it, 3,000 times or whatever in the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
That was a strike, by the way. So it's 0-2.
So you've called World Series. Have you called an All-Star game?
I have not.
You've not called on, so maybe that could answer this question. But so you've called the World Series. You've done pretty much everything one could do in the broadcasting business. What do you look forward to potentially being able to do one day?
Well, a lot of it was answered, I think, in taking this job, and that is, the radio calls of big moments. I haven't had any of those. I've had a lot of TV calls. So, my goal here, and that's another strike. So this is you struck me out, but it's more granular than it is grand.
Uh-huh.
I want to be the person who can describe very specifically and eloquently what is happening and have people understand it who are listening. And that's something I've never really been able to do. And I want to see if I'm good at it. What, Alex? What did I do? Was that too easy?
I had a really good one that I thought was the winner.
Alex.
So it's actually, I'll call it, it's extra innings. I guess we're tied, but
free baseball.
Free baseball. That's right. Runner on second base here. It's more of a follow-up to that, right? And broadcasters, right, there's a difference between an announcer and a broadcaster. Broadcasters, right, like John Sterling's John Sterling. You said it. The best broadcasters are the people that are them.
I meant no disrespect by saying broadcaster if you prefer announcer. I don't know enough about the biz.
No, you're right. You're right. You nailed it.
So when did you realize that you are Len Kasper?
I'm going to fudge it and say probably 2007, maybe my third year with the Cubs. I was 31 when I got the Marlins job. I was 34 when I got the Cubs job. And in both cases, it was a bit of a whirlwind, and I didn't have a ton of experience. But I think after 5 or 6 years of doing this, I felt like I was basically the same broadcaster that you hear today. I don't like to go back and listen to myself from 20, 25 years ago because all I hear are the mistakes. But I think you are as good as your experience says you are. And that's the one bit of advice I have for every broadcaster out there. It's like every other occupation, practice makes perfect, experience makes you better. When you first start doing it, it's a lot like playing the game. It's really fast. And the more experience you garner, the more you can slow down your heartbeat a little bit and understand that you have more time to say what you need to say.
So we're about to wrap up, but what Alex said intrigued me a little bit. How do you feel about the changes that were made last year and potentially will be made in the future, like the universal DH, 7 innings, and the runner on second?
I do like National League Baseball, but I think both leagues need to have the same rules. So I have already That ship has sailed, in my opinion, on the DH. I think it's here to stay, and I'm fine with that. It's easier on my scorecard too. Runner at second base and extras, I was expecting to hate it. I actually kind of liked it because it did add some interesting strategy in terms of what teams might do when you're on the road versus at home in those spots. And while I don't mind the occasional 19 or 20 inning game, it really does ruin your bullpen for about a week. And it's probably something we should try to avoid as on 7 inning doubleheaders. I think we're going to have it again this year, but I think at the big league level, I would probably prefer 9 inning games moving ahead after 2021.
The runner on second is so interesting to me because we did it, or in the minor leagues do it, but in the playoffs you don't do it. So that threw me for an absolute whirlwind when we made it to the playoffs, and then all of a sudden the game changed. Like, it's a completely different game when there's nobody on second. We went from starting with a guy on second to all of a sudden playing a 17-inning playoff game because nobody knew how to score. It was just an unbelievable experience.
Yeah, and I do like managers not being penalized, but if you do use 7 relievers before the 11th, the idea that you might have to use a position player at some point. Like, I do think you should save your resources, but when you're playing 162 guys, you just don't need to be at the ballpark for 9 hours one night and ravage your bullpen and use your starting pitcher for the next night, and somebody gets hurt. The one thing it does create opportunities for minor league pitchers in particular, because when you have a 17-inning game, you can bet that you're going to have 2 new guys in your bullpen the next day.
Mm.
Then the last question we have for you on the podcast is one we always like to end it with. In your opinion, what is the best position in baseball?
The best position
And to preface, if you answer incorrectly, you are off the list for Guest of the Year nomination.
Okay. Well, I'm supposed to say first base. The best position in baseball. I mean, that's a fascinating way to ask it, because
we're not saying most important or anything like that, just the best.
The best. Guys, I got to go to catcher, and I'll tell you why. I never wanted to do it. So few guys want to do it. The beating they take behind the plate, the fact that we laugh when they take one off the cup is I always feel bad about that. And then they got to go out and they got to try to hit. And guys like Wilson Contreras and Yasmani Grandal and JT Realmuto, who can do both, that's really impressive. And with all the advanced analytics and what they have to have in their head, I mean, it's like they're football players learning a playbook, and they have to go out and try to hit 300. So I have a ton of respect for catchers.
I will say about catching is, who I live with, but he gets there before everybody because he's got catching stuff to do. He's there after everybody, and this is just in the off season too. So it is a 100% commitment to learning the new things, what you need to know about pitchers and everything like that. And then go out and hit. It's funny how the catching position is one of those where there's not that much turnover, because if you get a good one, you're keeping them. And
that's right.
That's how it
yep.
goes.
Totally.
But Len, this was so much fun, and we got to get you back on because we didn't even get to your music career. So
we'll do that next time. Yeah,
we'll do it next time. You're like the Bo Jackson of broadcasting and of music, because Boog was saying just how talented you are in your band, and how fun is that for you just to be able to just get away from baseball and enjoy something completely different?
It's a lot of fun. We have to have hobbies and diversions and distractions. And playing in a band is something that's completely different from what I do normally. And it helps me clear my mind. And I think hopefully I'm a better broadcaster because of that.
Absolutely. I love it. But where can the fans follow you on social media? Baseball season right around the corner, tentatively. Tentatively.
They can follow me on Twitter at Len Kasper. It's just my full name. If they're interested in the music, Sonic 45, so it's SONIC 45.com is our website.
Len, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Alex, thanks so much. Vinnie, best of luck to you, and I hope you have a very successful, healthy 2021.
And we're back from that interview. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's just me and Alex talking again. The interview's over. Tell us how you think it was, because we both think it went really well. And we're not done with Chicago people this week. Later on this week, on Thursday, we're dropping an interview that we haven't even done yet, which is super exciting. Cubs prospect, an Old Dominion alum, PJ Higgins, is coming on the show. And I don't even know if he knows yet, but he is. And that's exciting times for him. So PJ will be on the show on Thursday. He's pumped. I'm pumped. Alex is pumped. So everybody get excited for that.
I can't wait. And we brought PJ up, but let the record show, yes, Len Kasper was great. Great interview. But I got a bone to pick with that Len Kasper because I deserved to win balls and strikes. That was
But you didn't.
unacceptable on his part to allow you to win on really, in my opinion, softball questions. So
For you to decide who wins. So that's the best part about the game.
well, I just disagree. I thought I deserved to win, and I guess in this case you did win, but I deserved to win that one.
Yep. Well, you didn't. So it doesn't matter if you deserve to or not. You didn't. And that's when we look at the wins and losses, it doesn't matter. It doesn't say deserved or no. No, it doesn't say that. It just says W and L. So I got a W for that one. You got an L. So you're just going to have to live with that.
Well, I'm going for the W on Thursday with PJ, and it's just I'm gonna come out swinging on Thursday. Just you watch.
If I had to guess, we're going to find our first walk with PJ on Thursday. That's going to be my guess.
You know, I was thinking about that the other night when we were doing an interview with someone that we haven't, announced yet. I thought this person was going like this was the longest balls and strikes game, and I thought for sure it was just going to end in like
Interview too.
like it was the closest to a walk, and I never thought about that. Like, what happens if someone gets a walk?
Yep.
Does
And
that start over at that point? Like,
who knows? But let me ask, the phrase "a bone to pick." I know what it means, but where do you think it came from?
I don't know.
Because like I understand what it means. Also, you know the phrase "how come"? Like
Yeah.
if somebody's asked you something, you say "how come."
Mhm.
That doesn't make any sense. If you think about, like, wouldn't you just say why? How come doesn't make any sense.
Mhm.
Like, have you ever texted that phrase? Because I have before, and I think to myself, wait, that doesn't make sense. Like, I know what it means,
Yeah.
but I mean, it essentially means why. But how come doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
I got nothing.
If I was to tell you something, I would be like, "Hey, Alex, go do the dishes." How come? Like that doesn't make any sense. Like, but if you said it to me, I would know what you mean.
Right.
So
Hmm.
I always think about that, different phrases, why they mean what they mean, even though they make no sense.
Yeah. No, I mean, I never thought about it.
Yeah.
So now I know what keeps you up at night.
Yeah. It's these barn burning questions that just live in my mind.
We should just do one podcast, just like where we ask the most burning questions that the universe has yet to give us the answers to.
Yeah, well, that's what I got right now. That is my burning question.
How come?
Yeah, how come? Exactly.
All right. Well, be sure to, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, the like button, comment below what you thought of the interview. Also, be sure to check out the phenomenal editing department here at A Whole New Ballgame, compiled all of the rapid fire question segments and the new balls and strikes segment, so you can just enjoy those segments if you enjoyed those parts of the interview.
Alex, I'd like you to post what I'm about to say on Twitter. I get a lot of questions about what's in the Solo Cup every week because I always got, it's either blue or red. I've always got the Solo Cup with me. It's water. You can't see it because it's almost empty. There's water in here. I'm a hydration machine. And that's what's in here every week. And if it changes, I'll let everybody know. If I'm drinking anything other than water, I'll be sure to let everybody know in the podcast what I'm drinking. But it's always been water. It will normally be water. But if it's ever not, I'll let everybody know, because I know that is a burning question a lot of people have.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know. So, well, to wrap it up, thank you all for listening and watching today. Can't wait to talk with all of you again in just a few days on Thursday.